Hello, I'm Illia Hart, and I'm joined here today with Guy Armstrong from New Zealand. I'm up here in in the north, near Nelson, British Columbia. I'm about 10-minute drive outside of town in the mountains here, and it's really beautiful. We're going into we're in full spring, and we're going into our really warm gardening season. It's really beautiful up here. But yeah, I guess, Guy, you're going into your fall, into your autumn time.
Yeah, I think we're sort of approaching winter a little bit. We've had some really crazy weather here, and right in the middle of New Zealand in Wellington,
Mm.
capital, and it's been, I know one day is really beautiful, and the next day it's all wind and rain and kind of crazy. So
Mm.
this city's kind of known for that a bit, but yeah, it's funny sort of going to work with your jacket and your woolly hat and everything, and then sun comes out and it's boiling.
That's that time of year. Do you look at the sky? Do you notice what's going on in the skies around you?
Yeah, I just about always stick my head out the window first thing in the morning and have a peek. Unfortunately, I work inside on the fourth floor of an office building,
Mm.
so kind of get a bit of a view of the skies. We don't have anything like the sort of chemtrails and that sort of thing over here. Is At least I don't see them too much. I know they've got them in some other parts of New Zealand, and sometimes my friends who live in this area will post a photo of those things once in a while. But I haven't sort of seen anything like that recently. But yeah, when I worked outside, I changed jobs about 6 months ago. Always keep an eye on the skies. Yeah.
I've been keeping an eye on the sky all my life, so it's really
Mm.
easy for me to especially when I'm with younger people and particularly children, I'm consistently pointing out what is a natural um, weather system, what is a natural cloud formation, and what isn't. And it's a really interesting, it's really interesting to keep your eye on the sky. It explains a lot if you really look, you look at it. But experience is everything. Like we chatted a little bit before we went live here, and um, it's experience. It's not about listening to anybody of how we can uh, like theories or ideas. I mean, those are fun to share, but for everybody, like for each of us, we really have to make everything our own experience. And I think that is um, really super important for all of us to keep that in mind.
Mm.
And to do that, we have to be aware of our surroundings. We really have to pay attention internally and externally. I would say probably more internally, yet we have to, we have senses for a reason. We use all of our senses in very particular ways. These energies are extremely important to our experiences. So to use those senses to, at their full potential, to really keep that, awareness through the senses. And it's sometimes through that then we can go a little bit deeper in the internal process, in that internal work, which of course is really what we're here to discuss today, which is my work. Guy, this is going to be a bit of a Q&A. We've been working on videos. Oh gosh, how long has it been, Guy? Like pretty consistently for close to a year,
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And we did a lot of Q&A and a lot of discussion around body electronics, the work of body electronics. And that's on a very particular YouTube channel called Body Electronics. You can find that just if you put in body electronics or Illia Hart, you can find both of those on YouTube. And there's probably about 150 hours now of long form. There's even some vintage videos of John Ray that he had videoed like back in the 90s of some of the lectures that he gave back in Australia. So that's, that's really, really a beautiful thing to watch. I mean, we've come a long way since then. We've really come a long way, even nutritionally, but the foundations and the principles always remain the same. It doesn't matter how new or how old a particular method is, or a particular process. Those principles, those what we call holistic principles, they run through everything that is of truth, everything that is going to assist us in our process to become more loving, compassionate beings on this planet. All processes, all teachings, have many things in common. So for body electronics, go to that YouTube channel. This video will go on. It's called The Work of Illia Hart. So if you're seeing this on another platform, I'll put it up on Rumble and and maybe some other platforms, but on YouTube it'll be at the Work of Illia Hart. Yeah. So maybe I just want to say one more thing before, if you want to, we'll get started in the Q&A. So the umbrella name of my work, as you'll see, I have a Facebook group called The Gnostic Way. I have a website. I call it The Gnostic Way, Holistic Health and Consciousness. It's under the URL of wholehealthcenter.com. And so the Gnostic Way has 4 components. So in this lifetime, I've been given 4 particular teachings. And those teachings are complete. They're complete holistic teachings in and of themselves. So you can look on my site and read further about that. So the Gnostic Way is like the umbrella name for all 4 of those teachings. And the other thing I want to say about that is, though, also too, the Gnostic Way is in Canada. Here in Canada, we are a religious organization, religious organization according to the government of Canada. And I did that specifically a couple of years ago in response to the draconian COVID mandates and injection mandates that the Canadian government put in place. And I had many people, that had been doing work with me for many years that were really distressed about that. And so I created, legally and in every other way, ethically, morally, I created the Gnostic Way as a religious organization so that people could have religious exemptions. People that are doing the work that I teach could have religious exemptions, for mandates. So that was very successful for a period of time until our charter rights and our Constitution had been breached, and they were no longer accepting medical or religious exemptions any longer in our public health here in Canada. So that was a very interesting time. It's a little bit, I don't forget. I will not forget what has occurred and what is still occurring. And that, I think it's really important to be, very aware of the political and medical, how politics and medicine colluded in order to create these fascist mandates and different different ways that they came across in the last 2 or 3 years that was really detrimental to humanity. And that's not just in Canada, of course, it's worldwide. So but I think it's really important because we're evolving into a new community. That's how I see it. I think that our legal system has completely gone into shambles here in Canada, for sure. I know that for sure. I don't know what's happening in the rest of the world, particularly. I do see some come out of Britain that I love watching the dot connector on iconic.com. So I stay up with, they do a lot of things out of Britain. So I know there's a lot of the same things going on over there. There's a lot of things in Holland that are very, very similar. I do hear things in Australia and New Zealand are very similar. So it seems like there's this undercurrent of destruction happening around the world. It's like a type of destruction where things then fall apart. So the legal system's falling apart, the medical system's falling apart, our educational system's falling apart, the political system's falling apart. These things are falling to bits. And in a way, as long as we take up the mantle from this place of love and compassion and create a new community of conscious people. So we have to really, really remember that consciousness is at the core of everything, it's the foundation to everything moving forward. Consciousness has always been the foundation, but I'm talking about higher consciousness now, and consciousness that is continuously evolving into deeper and greater levels of love and compassion. So we really have to, this is a really important time in the Earth's, I don't really like the word history, but you get my point. At this time, it's really important for us to become more aware. We often hear the word, awake, become awake. Well, awakening is just the very first spark that moves consciousness from the unconscious into something that we have some kind of awareness for. But that awareness isn't kept in a box. That awareness continues to expand as we, as we provide, our own selves with the necessary components. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit more. Probably with your Q&A, we'll get into that, because the holistic components are really physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So as long as we're working in that holistic, I call those the 4 pillars of holism. As long as we're working on those, continuously refining, like it's a continuous refinement. That's what consciousness is moving into higher consciousness. We're continuously refining. And with that refining, we're going to come together. We're going to make new and beautiful communities here on this planet. And they're, the beings who have had a stronghold on the planet for however long, it's I think it's beyond any of our true knowingness, how long that, it could be from the beginning of time, that this earth has been in a stronghold of deception and inversion. So we really have to, through awareness, of course, we can be aware of these things. Like I said, but it started out, I look at the sky, I watch the sky every day. And it's really important, and it's really frustrating to know that there are programs going on this planet to basically brainwash people into herd mentality. That's we even look at the nutrition. The nutrition is all about herd mentality. I just wrote a little brief post this morning on my website that's talking about addiction and talking about those simple addictions that, and I think I said something like these addictions are sort of like it's the first wave to higher consciousness. We have to really address our addictions. So
Mm.
anyway, going off in several different directions, maybe you can bring me back into center, Guy, with a question.
Well, well, I don't know. How about a comment? That point about addiction reminds me of
You're
the old
chopping.
saying, like you can't serve two masters.
I,
Like you
ca-
can't sort of
I
go
didn't
up
hear the
and
first
down at the same.
Guy. I didn't
Oh,
hear
it
the
was
first
like
part of
your
that.
point about it.
You were
Okay, can you hear
chopping.
me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. The first part of that, I couldn't hear.
Um, so I said, how about a comment? Like your statement about addiction reminds me of the old saying that you can't serve two masters. You can't sort of indulge your addiction and grow out of the addiction and become a more evolved person,
Mm.
sort of at the
Yeah.
same time. So how do you? I don't know. Here's a question: how do you? I guess every person who wants to evolve has struggled with addiction and justifying their addictions, whether it's sugar craving or something obvious like cigarettes, or something less obvious, maybe like coffee or sugar or um, companionship even. How do you
Right.
sort of differentiate between addiction and something beneficial?
Well, that's we have to really know ourselves in order to answer that question ourselves honestly. And looking at my own life, and for people that I have worked with over the years, it's really that comes down to honesty, self-honesty. And because I really believe deep down we know what is addiction, and what is a craving in relation to what is. Let's look at nutrition, for example. So as we're moving up scale in the evolutionary process, our diet and nutrition will change continuously. I've watched that over my lifetime. And I look back on, even I had a farming background. So the first part of my life was really clean, like super clean food. And then there was a period of time, probably a decade of time, when I was enjoying like this robust health, extremely robust health, as a result of having, that all that time of perfect nutrition. I mean, I was raised on a dairy farm, and we had raw milk. My grandmother and I would take turns with the churn and make our own butter. I mean, it was really clean. It's really clean living, and all organic gardens. Before we didn't even use the word organic. That wasn't even that
Mm.
wasn't even used at all back then. But everything was the old farming ways. Things, people are getting back to that now, but people have been doing things like that for eons. Since the after the hunter and gatherer, when the agricultural system came in. I don't even know how many eons ago that was, but it was a long time ago. And but it's just been in this sort of industrial age. I would say the
Yeah.
last 100 years have been the crunch time on humanity for chemicals and all things detrimental to life. That's
Yeah.
anti-life. That's really taking away from life. So now we think certain things, especially even the last, let's say 3 decades, 4 decades, we think things like coffee are normal. We think garbage chocolate and all kinds of sugar is perfectly acceptable,
Mm.
socially acceptable. People eat it every
Mm.
single day.
Yeah.
Um, and so back to the refining. So we have to look at where we're at, that self-honesty of where we're at.
Mm.
And to get out of addiction, anybody who's done it, which I've done, I've been working really, really hard on that for probably 4 decades, to just keep my awareness to the point where I can be honest with myself and say, okay, this is not serving my physical body. And in so, it's then not supporting the emotional, mental, spiritual health.
Yeah.
So it starts, we always start with that physical level. That's where we have to have that foundation, even though it's a very small percentage of the, of the greater whole. We do have to have that physical foundation. So back to your question, over the years, I have struggled, off and on with, is this a craving, which is a biochemical result of addiction? Is this a compulsion? Let's say to eat, to eat something sweet, or to eat whatever it is, a compulsion that comes over us, right? That we really feel like we have to have it. So there's that. And then there's it's almost exactly feeling the same when our body's trying to tell us that we need a certain nutrient, that we're lacking in something. So we really need something. A lot of food cravings are a result of dehydration. That empty feeling that people get. I've experienced it myself over the years, that empty feeling that it's like, oh, I got to eat something. So they go to the fridge and then they're trying to fill that void. And that void cannot be filled when it's like chronic dehydration, for example. So it's like being able to get to know your body so well that you're then having true discernment. But to sum that up, when we are working on that discernment, because discernment never ends. Discernment is like everything else. It's always refining. So, but to kind of put it on, into experience, almost every single time I was thinking that I really, this craving, see how those two things can kind of cross? And then your justifications will come in to say, oh, I must really need that.
Yeah.
That my body must really need that. But it really comes down to, like I said, self-honesty, but then really looking at, are we going in an upscale movement to a refining of our nutrition? Or are we going downscale? And then we make the choice from there. And usually if we, like, I'll talk about myself personally, if I would take some good quality, I have really good quality water, and if I would just drink some really good quality lemon water and sit with it for a little while, and that craving or that addictive response, that compulsion to have something, and we're talking about food and drink here, not like sort of out of the boundaries of nutrition, because that can happen with many things. I used to have a friend that, I'll just finish that thought. So I would just have a good amount. I drink my lemon water in a liter jar, and I would drink that liter jar, and then that compulsion would leave, and it would just, it wouldn't be there anymore. So it's like so it comes down to, there's a couple of things that I want to add to that. There's two ways to change diet, in my opinion, and that is cold turkey, where your mind says, I'm not going to do that. I know that it's not helping me. I know that it's not providing what my body needs, so I'm not going to do that any longer. And you go cold turkey. And then you kind of work through those compulsions afterwards, and find ways to kind of move through that, healthy ways to move through that. So you can do it that way, or you can do it gradually. And it's however the person feels, and it depends on the substance. It depends on how long the person's been addicted to that substance and how much they've been ingesting. They can't go cold turkey on something that, maybe they've been doing it every day for 10 years. Cold turkey
Yeah.
is a lot more difficult. So, you go gradually and you wean yourself off of whatever that is. And like for me, cold turkey works. I'll decide something. I'll see that it's not serving my body. And then I'll be like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. And I move away from it. And so I've done a lot of that. It's just, you have to know yourself. And I can maintain that. Some people say that they can't maintain that. So if they go cold turkey, then they may be good for a month, but then they'll go back twice as hard. So it's about knowing yourself. It's about knowing how you respond to,
Yeah.
to your biochemical compulsions.
Mm. Yeah, I think so. Reminds me of a book a fellow wrote, a guy called William Rogers. He wrote this book. He's a law professor, and the book's called something like what is it? A state shaped to suit technology. I think that's the subtitle. The title was something like corporate country.
Mm.
And he's a law professor, professor of environmental law, and so he found all these, I don't know, amazing quotations and documents and stuff about the various industries that were influencing America in the 1970s, like the airports industry and airports everywhere, and detergents industry, and fluoride and copper emissions and stuff like that, and found some really, really, I don't know, incredible kind of just, I don't know, really shows you sort of what's going on in those industries a bit, I guess, and the motivations behind it. And it was all, corporate greed and one craziness. Sorry, that's a bit of a change from talking about addiction and nutrition, but it like gives some of the reason why we're so inundated lately with chemicals and strange things in the food supply over the last sort of 100 years.
Well, you wrote a book on fluoride, didn't you, Guy?
Yeah.
Is that book available? Is it on Amazon or is it somewhere? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Do you want to give the name and just throw that out there right now so that people
Okay.
are interested in learning about fluoride?
Yeah, cheers. Well, it's called How Essential is Fluoride, and the title is, it might sound like a bit funny because something's sort of either essential or not essential, but it's kind of getting at the way the advocates of water fluoridation would always try and spin it into being an essential nutrient and a necessity, even when the scientific, stuff in their own journals would say it's just blatantly not. So it was kind of like comparing the scientific stuff and then in the science journals, and then the bureaucratic sort of literature that comes out of governments, and then the newspaper clipping for the mass public, and you'd go from like more public to more obscure, and gradually it would, as the communications went more public, fluoride became more of a necessity. So it was kind of about the misrepresentation of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Great.
it's
Yeah, I know you sent
quite
me
a
a copy.
unique
It's
book.
it is a very unique book. It was very, very, very well done. So I recommend anybody who's interested in fluoride. Where we go from here, Guy?
Well, yeah, I don't know. You said something beforehand, like it's before we started recording here, about how crucial it is, and I really agree with this. Like it's really important for us to just sort of elevate ourselves nowadays, because the last few years we've seen this sort of willingness of Big Brother to sort of stomp that boot down on our face, for want of a better term, lock everyone up and prevent all sorts of things. And people talk now about these 15-minute cities, and had the, forced sort of vaccination, get a vaccine or lose your job kind of thing. Which reminds me, can I just say one thing on this? I saw someone posted on social media on my feed today. It was something like, do you remember when a couple of years ago, all of us who opposed didn't want the vaccine were told that COVID would bring about more heart problems than the vaccine would? Someone just said, like, hey, where are all the unvaccinated people with all the horrific heart problems. I just thought that was really funny because I sort of don't personally know any. But
all inverted, right?
yeah, kind of
Diversion,
whack.
diversion tactics.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of nonsense going on. The digital currency is a big concern. There's a lot of, of course, it's the globalist agenda and the, it's sometimes referred to as Agenda 2030, but they're trying to even move that up. Yeah, the sustainable development goals is something for everybody to look at and learn about if they haven't already, so that they're aware of, all these things that sound fantastic, right? They sound like they're going to be so great for humanity, but really it's about taking complete control of of humankind. And that's, that's something we really have to, if we're not awake to that yet, then it's really time that we really, awaken to, that, and, that will lead us out into very many rabbit holes that we can discover. But these 17 sustainable development goals, the person that I know that worked with some other people, and did like some really good breakdowns of each one of the goals. So his name is Mark Friesen. He's a Canadian out of Saskatchewan, and he's got a podcast called The Grizzly Patriot. So that's you can clue into him, and if you want to learn about those 17 sustainable development goals that we have to really avoid, coming into our countries and our provinces and our towns and cities in our country. So, into the land, I mean, into the out into the country, I should say,
Okay.
it will spread, throughout, there'll be nowhere to hide. Let's put it that way. There's lots of people that want to like go into the bush and build a cabin and be sustainable or whatever. But these, these beings who really want to, they have serious control issues. Let's put it that way. They haven't done any body electronics, guy, and they have serious control issues, power and control issues, and they really are caught in that loop. If they would go a little bit further, as we know in body electronics. So power and control is when we move from the bottom up in our consciousness through the emotional body, and there's 49 levels in the body electronics, and you can read tons about that or hear tons about that on the other videos. But when we get to the thyroid, parathyroid, that's where the power and control issues surface. That's where anger is. That's where rage is. That's where it sort of comes to the surface there, and it's very seductive. I often tell people when they get to that level, be willing to continue to move further, because it's very seductive. It's very seductive, and it's not that typical angry place that people might assume. It's this quite powerful. It feels like it's a pseudo power, but you then have this this energy, that this untransmuted energy that then can be used to have power over others, and that's really what's happening. And then so you get to that place, but if you go a little bit further into emotional pain, and we can really develop our willingness to feel emotional pain and really learn how to transmute, then we're going to get to a place of true compassion, and we wouldn't even consider having power and control over others. We would only have the true power and control over our own being. And we would do that in such a beautiful and loving and compassionate way. So there's just one leap. They just have to go one step, in the emotional body, and they would step, most of them, if they're still working with their human biology, they only have to go one step further to really find true compassion and really move energy into higher consciousness. So, I'm not holding my breath for that to occur, but it's always a possibility for each and every person that's still breathing on this planet.
Yeah. Yeah, it always amazes me how the sort of, I don't know, willingness to control everyone is was justified in sort of higher principles, and it's always done for your best good and all that sort of thing, with like
Yeah.
total disregard of your freedom.
Yeah. The self-righteousness comes into the
Yeah.
to the anger, the power and control issues. The self-righteousness comes into that, and then they feel like a form of superiority. Well, we all do, because if we're evolving and we're evolving through that, we get to that stage and we get to know it very well. But are we projecting it into our environment and trying to control others and control our environment, or are we continuing to move forward? That's the real inner work that has to be done in order for higher consciousness to really be held in our awareness, in our daily life. You have to keep moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Remind me of something you said a while back, which was, I think, like people grow to a certain understanding of truth, and then that's all the truth they want, but they don't want to have more truth.
Right.
Like that.
Right.
That was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, very true.
That actually happens, I believe. Well, I know that actually happens where they get to a point of unwillingness to move forward in the emotional body. The emotional body has such a hold on the minds of humanity. It holds people in a very particular, that energy of that emotional level holds people in a particular way. And if we're not continuously working to move through that and continue on the evolutionary path, then we stay there. We stay there, and then they get comfortable. And I've experienced it myself. I've been comfortable in certain places of the emotional body, and you get comfortable, and then you have like sort of this unwillingness to change. This unwillingness to change comes in,
Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, and then so you form your box consciousness around that, and as we we know from from consciousness, all things present themselves. So then we get into this feedback loop, this externalized feedback loop that that we experience, and then people just get caught in that. So, but I think it goes back to this unwillingness to change, this unwillingness to move that emotional energy. They maybe get to a place that's something that's really, really powerful in its presence, and emotional energy that's really powerful, that is connected with trauma or connected with a resistance, from that created experience that we're just not quite yet willing to look at, or not quite yet willing to transmute. So they stay where they are for the time being, for the time being.
Yeah. Do you find, I imagine you would, that there are many sort of experiences and situations in life that just force you into maybe accepting new paradigms, or like sort of giving you the boot to hurry up and change your consciousness?
We can be
kind of crudely.
forced. Yeah, I mean, we can be forced physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
Yeah.
We can be, forced into change. There's a post, it's an old post, but if you put in the search bar on my site, I think it's called Forced or Chosen or Forced, or something like that. If you put
yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just I mean, the title says it all. It's really about, we either take control of our own consciousness and the movement of that consciousness, or we allow our external environment to push us into that movement, and I always like to kind of stay one step ahead of that. So even physically, like I work really, really diligently on maintaining good health. Everything that I do as far as food and drink and exercise and clean water and fresh air and movement, those things are, and infrared saunas, and, the list goes on and on and on. Juicing, celery juice every day, detox formula. I drink detox formula every morning. Now, instead of coffee, I gave up coffee a few years ago, but instead of that morning drink, that hot drink of coffee or tea or whatever people have, I drink the detox, the Ojibwe detox formula. And, that recipe is on my site too. People can access that free of charge. It's all there for people. Preparation, everything is there. So, and that's for the liver. Oh, that could be something that we could just discuss a little bit right now, because this has been coming up a lot this week, and I wrote a post about the liver. And our liver is really our internal hope organ, because it has the ability to regenerate more quickly and efficiently than any other organ in the body. It's an amazing. The liver is really at the core of our health. And in the in this day and age, we have so many toxins. If we're eating, drinking, breathing, putting it on our skin, we are ingesting toxin. And the liver is the filter to all those toxins. So keeping the liver clean is imperative to good health. That's so, it's just so important. So, wow. So that's one of the things I do for the liver, is have that detox tea every morning.
Okay. So have you worked with people who've had a lot of alcohol in their past? Because alcohol destroys the liver, right?
Well, it can damage the liver, and it depends on how. It depends on so many things. It depends on how long the abuse has been, the alcohol abuse has been going on. It has a lot to do with the person's constitution. It also has a lot to do with the person's willingness to change. If we're willing to change, that liver is so responsive to change. It's really the unwillingness to change that's at the root of our detriment. So if we can, one of the first principles of body electronics is lovingly and willingly endure all things. That includes, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. So lovingly and willingly endure change.
Yeah.
That's
so
important.
He doesn't say lovingly and willingly endure most things.
Right.
Yeah.
Or when we want to lovingly and willingly endure it.
Yeah. When it suits you. Yeah. I'm just thinking, like, if a person destroys their liver, they would then sort of be bringing down the rest of their body.
Well, if your liver's destroyed,
quite a powerful way. If
your liver's actually destroyed, you're not going to live very long. So it's all about percentage in the liver. So the liver can be like, let's say it's damaged 30%, 40%, something like that. It takes, one of the things that is very important to remember is that even though like I said, the liver is like a great regenerator, it takes time. We are so brainwashed by this allopathic pharmaceutical programming that things, we take a pill and we're going to feel better instantly. And that's not how nature works. That's not how the body works. That's how chemicals and suppression work. So we must remember that when we're working on upgrading our health and regenerating our liver, or any other part of our body for that matter, it takes time, effort, and diligence. We have to be diligent about it. So it's, like the Ojibwe formula has been known, it became very, very well known decades ago as something that cancer patients used to not have cancer anymore. And, there was people were from all over the world, that it just became famous, like maybe, I don't know, maybe 5 decades or so ago. But then it wasn't really legalized until the 90s. Wasn't made legal by the powers that be. And it was only made legal because a corporation bought it. And because a corporation bought it, this was actually an Ojibwe formula. It was a natural medicine from the Ojibwe people that was given free of charge. The formula was given free of charge to a cancer nurse, who then made it her life's mission to, get it out to as many people as possible. I was given it in a very, very similar way. That whole story is on my site. I won't go into that right now. But, and that was in the 1980s that it was given to me. So, and I've been given that, I've been making it up for people and giving the recipe and getting people to DIY. I mean, it's really, really important to make your own medicine. But back to the diligence, it's not about taking it for a week or a month. I know people that have, especially if there is a degenerative disease or, the liver has gotten to a point where it really needs some severe regeneration. We want to really stick with it. We want to make it a daily practice and stick with it for years. People that have come to me over the years for, that have had cancer, they'll often, they'll be really, really good on it, let's say for a year. They'll take it every day for a year. And then, then they'll find, this is people that are going to allopathic doctors, then they'll find that, their cancer has gone into remission or whatever they call it. So then they'll stop taking it. And so the bottom line to this is, and those physical things are really, really, really important, like I said before. Yet it's only foundational to really make permanent change. We have to find the source and the cause. And that you can only do through consciousness. So that's where the inner work comes in. And I'll pop back into like the explanation. I didn't really get far into the explanation of the Gnostic way. The Gnostic way are words that I chose to describe the internal process. Doesn't have anything to do with any externalized religious ideas or anything like that. It's really our own personal, individual, internal process of consciousness. And so, yeah, so that's really what the Gnostic way is referring to. So when we get to that, we can really then have permanent change. That's, but until then, I would be, I would take it continuously and never stop at all. I would just continually take it. And everybody that I've known that has had a cancer diagnosis, and if they haven't stopped taking it, all the cancers went into remission. But it's really in that perseverance, that daily perseverance, and it's other things too. It's not just, take that and then continue on a, high carb, high sugar, grains diet with poor nutrition. I mean, it's, we have to do everything we can, of course, to help the body to come back into a healthy state. But the liver is so important. It's so important to blood health. It's important to kidney health. I mean, the liver is like the filter to the kidneys. So the kidneys, everything we eat and drink goes through the liver. And the liver has over 500 jobs. I mean, it makes enzymes. When the pancreas when the pancreas is maybe a little bit sluggish, the liver will take over and start to make enzymes. And it just does so much. The liver should be really revered. And it's such a big organ, it's a huge organ under our right rib cage. Yeah. So anyway, really, that's one of the things that it's been on my, just on my heart for the last week or two. I get a lot of downloads and I get a lot of sort of energetic inspirations. And the liver is so important to keep clean, and just to love our liver. Yeah. Keep loving our liver and giving it what it needs. Yeah. Because we're inundated.
Yeah.
We're inundated with poisons. We're inundated with toxicity.
Yeah, yeah. Reminds me of that lady, Rosalind Peterson, that you put me onto years ago.
Love her.
And she just had those really, really good videos about weather alteration and cloud seeding and stuff like that. And they're really sort of academic and governmental, and really, really interesting. Yeah.
The late, great Rosalind Peterson. I say, if you want, like, if you have friends and neighbors who haven't been looking at the sky, and they've been in denial about the manufacturing of our weather and the climate engineering, which is underneath all of this climate nonsense, by the way. If you know people that are still in denial about that, I say start with Rosalind Peterson's videos, especially one video that is on my site. If you just put in Rosalind, and it's Lind, Rosalind Peterson, in the search bar, you'll come up with this great video. But you can find her on YouTube. I think she's probably gotten a little shadow banned in the last couple of years, but she's a little bit more difficult to find. But I tell people to start people off with that video. She's just so palatable. She's so lovely. And, she worked very, very, very hard to bring people's awareness to what was going on. And she describes it beautifully. So go to her, go to her videos and watch her. But if you are a veteran to the climate fiasco, go to geoengineeringwatch.org, and that's Dane Wigington's work. And he did a video called The Dimming, and you can see that on his site free of charge. He does have a donate button. He's very, very, very humble, beautiful man who's been spending at least 20 plus years of his life educating people, and so dedicated so much of his life. And he puts out a weekly broadcast. It's an audio broadcast. It's also free of charge on the site. He calls it the Bad News Broadcast. It's excellent. He does a little bit of up to date, like what's going on each week, and as far as the weather is concerned, and his take on that. So that's for seasoned veterans. People who are not in denial, and who are willing to really, go all the way and really hear what's actually going on.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's a
Thank
great.
you. I'll have a look at that. Yeah.
I first became aware of Dane back in the years that I was going to Mount Shasta, and he lives very near. He lives in Shasta County, so. Yeah, he's a great person. They're both great. They've both done great things to assist us in our education for what's really going on in the weather. Yeah, something just jumps in here, and I think we thought we'd go about 45 minutes, but I think we're probably over that. One of the things that I have been very aware of. Okay, I'm very big on electromagnetic frequencies. And of course, everything has a natural and an unnatural, it's either life or anti-life, right? We can look at we can look at almost everything that way. So electromagnetic frequencies is no different. So these bodies are electromagnetic frequencies. That's all we are. Everything that we see, hear, touch, anything at all, are electromagnetic frequencies. The earth, anything that seems solid is energy. That's all anything ever is energy coming into a crystalline form in order to experience itself. So I wanted to make that determination. So the electromagnetic frequencies can be created, like, what our friend Elon did, what he's doing, and he put, all these satellites into the air, and he's continuing, he's got permission from the US to put, because he's subsidized by the government, by the way, and he's continuing to put these satellites up in the air, and Starlink is now, up and running. You can buy, is it Starlink? You can get Starlink in New Zealand? Yeah, here too, yeah. So those are artificial electromagnetic frequencies. The HAARP program, HAARP, it's an anagram, look it up. The HAARP program is detrimental electromagnetic frequencies that are used to control climate, manufacture climate, and do other things. There's all kinds of electromagnetic frequencies that are doing detrimental things to biology on planet Earth at this time. Even in your home, to keep your smart meters away from, preferably not even have a smart meter, but if you do, keep it away from, especially away from where you sleep and work. There's so much I can say about that. You can, look on my site. There's lots about that too. But, keeping the earbuds out of the ears. These things that people are using in their ears, where the electromagnetic frequency goes right through your brain, that's not going to serve your body. That is detrimental to health, particularly to the brain. The brain is electromagnetic. And when it gets interrupted, we know what happens to whales. Whales use sonar, and other mammals use sonar. Birds use electromagnetic frequencies to do their migration patterns, right? We get interference in that, they lose track of where they are. Bees are electromagnetic beings. I mean, they do everything on electromagnetics. Everything that they do is electromagnetic. And they know exactly what to do. I mean, ants, we can go on and on, but everything is electromagnetic in its natural form. But when we're being interfered with artificial electromagnetics, this is when we have problems. This is where problems can occur. So if people can just be aware of these simple little things physically that can make all the difference in their general health, and then move forward into consciousness work, But today we're just going to talk. We thought we'd talk just a little bit more about the physical aspects, but just touched upon. I just wanted to touch on that EMF thing. So important.
Yeah, it is.
And that's not where I was going. I want to go a little further with that. So one of the big things that people, especially those of us who are super sensitive to energies and electromagnetic frequencies, the LED lights, for example, right? If I go into a grocery store or any kind of a store that have LED lights or fluorescent lighting, I just start buzzing. There's just a buzzing, and I have to do it quickly. If it's a grocery store, I have to move in and out very quickly. Now what's happening with our sun is a very interesting process that some people are talking about, but basically the sun is changing. And I first really clued into this probably a couple of decades ago, when I was studying with Drunvalo Melchizedek. And Drunvalo said that the sun is becoming more helium. And as the sun becomes more helium, then the photonic light that is being projected onto the earth from the sun is becoming more and more and more relevant. And so, it kind of reminds me of what you said, one of your questions in the beginning, Guy, of how do we discern how do we discern, we were talking about nutrition, but how do we discern electromagnetic frequencies that's anti-life and disruptive to electromagnetic frequencies that is natural and is actually bringing us into a higher state of being? Because that's what our natural process, the photonic light, is actually, it comes right into anything that is alive. It's absorbed and moves through anything that is alive, and it upgrades the cellular process. So that's another thing that we can really start discerning on. There's so much around that, but just to look at it in, from more than one perspective, let's put it that way. And the sun is so important to our health. Like, get out in the sun every day. It doesn't matter if it's what type of weather it is. The weather here is, for so many months up in the mountains. I mean, I still have snow, and we're having, like, I think we had a 25-degree day today, but there's still snowpack. So, it doesn't matter what weather is happening. Get out in the sun, especially at sunrise and sunset. If we can get out at sunrise and sunset and be, like, truly in gratitude, let's say even 20 minutes to a half an hour around that time, just slow everything right down. Just bring yourself right into harmony with the sun and watch that sunrise, and just concentrate and intensify gratitude within you, and do that again at sunset. And that is such a beautiful process. Did I take you, when you went to the Sedona intensive with me, did I take you up to the airport Mesa to watch the sunrise? You'd remember.
No, I don't think so. No, we went to a couple of cool places around there.
For the sunrise.
We did go to one kind of.
Sunsets.
We did go to a place near a river. We camped out by a river.
Oh yes.
Slept on the side of the river, and then there was a place.
That's Oak Creek. That's
okay.
Yeah, it comes down the canyon from Flagstaff all the way down through Sedona and keeps going.
Beautiful part of the world.
I bring that up because one of my sons just did his first sojourn in Sedona and area, went up to Utah and did a big,
wow.
Him and his partner did a little walkabout. And so, of course, when he was in Sedona, I felt like I was literally spiritually there with him. I was just like, I was kind of on his shoulder, and I was showing him, we were discussing things prior and during as well. And I said, if you get up at like 5 a.m. and make your way up to the airport Mesa, about halfway up where there's a little parking area, and you watch the sunrise over, and then you see Cathedral Rock, and it's just like the vista's amazing up there. And if you do that, everything else in the day will go perfectly well. And so he did that, and I was, I'm just so glad he was able to experience that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
But wherever we are, we don't need to journey elsewhere either. Wherever we are, wherever we find ourselves on this planet, if we can watch the sunrise and the sunset, and with gratitude, we can really, really begin to start changing and moving that internal process into a truly evolutionary way. We have to reach this state of higher consciousness to the point where we're getting the compassion. Got to get to the pituitary. Got to get that far, and we can work away at that if we want for a while, and then, but we have to get up that far in order to maintain a higher consciousness on this planet. It's really crucial. It's so crucial. We're at crunch time, being complacent is not going to cut it any longer. We really got to move forward. So yeah. So anything else you want to say before we wrap it up, Guy?
Well, I was gonna give a thumbs up to a couple of Australians. One's John Pilger, who's been doing documentaries since I was in nappies, and the other's Caitlin Johnstone, who's been writing some really good stuff about the US sort of power around the world and how they spin, I don't know, spin us to all hate Russia and China and stuff like that, and sort of scaremongering about Russia and China a lot. And yeah, she's written really eloquently on that about how America's encircling China with all these military bases, and then saying this is we have to do this because the Chinese are so aggressive and that sort of thing, and it's like a justification for arms manufacturing and that sort of thing. So it's pretty important, yeah.
And where can people find them, Guy?
Caitlin Johnstone has a Substack. I can't remember the exact address. I've got it down here somewhere. Yeah, it's called Caitlin's Newsletter on Substack. And John Pilger, if you just Google him, he's got a website. He's on heaps of his documentaries are on YouTube.
Okay, great, thank you. And how can people find you, Guy?
I'm on. What am I on? I have a Substack. It's called Guy PD Police Department. Yeah, Guy PD Armstrong at Substack.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. And why don't you give your website address, Illia?
Oh, it's wholehealthcenter.com. You can read about everything, read more about everything I just said and more. I think I'm up over 500 posts, and there's books that are no longer in publication. There are PDFs lots of PDFs that I've put on there that's free of charge, and lots of reading and a few videos. I haven't posted a lot of videos on the site, maybe, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so. Or maybe there's more than that now, I don't know. But you can find me on Rumble, YouTube, as long as I last there. And I find Twitter very irritating, so I'm not really doing a lot. I do have a Twitter account, but I'm really not doing very much there. I find it too political, and people aren't really interested in holistic health and consciousness there. At least the people that I just people haven't found me there. Let's put it that way. And then you can find me as well on Facebook on that Gnostic Way group page. If you're interested in body electronics, which is a very powerful healing modality that I'm an instructor of and hold intensives from time to time, you can find 2 group pages there. I'm not active on them anymore for the time being, but I've been very active for a long time. There's just a wealth of information on. One's called Body Electronics, the Evolution of Consciousness, and the other one's called Body Electronics, the Spiritual Science of Regeneration. So those those 3 group pages are really where I'm most active on or where I've been active on Facebook, but the Gnostic Way group page is where I'm active at the moment. So those are the places that people can clue into what I'm doing, and there's contact information on my website. And yeah, let's wrap it up there. Thanks so much,
Awesome.
Guy,
for
making this time. And yeah, we'll be in touch. And maybe we'll do another video before the 16th of May.
Okay.
So
yeah, should be able to. Yeah.
Yeah, let me know when you have some available time, and we'll work it out.
Sounds good. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Have a great week. Have a great week, Guy.
All right. You too.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.